Welcome to the broadcast, my dears. I am going to dive right on in because I have a few things to say in response to Aaron Korsh, scriptwriter of Suits, who has come forward to the Hollywood Reporter in an interview and he's put the royal family's name in his mouth. I'm getting a little bit sick and tired of the cast and crew members of some Toronto soap opera who had the high honour of being the hallowed guests of the Duchess of Sussex, her only guests, at that cursed wedding. The high honour of being there, being in the presence of royalty, and now all they can do is disparage it or cast aspersions which may or may not originate from them or other quarters. I've got something to say, my dear, in response to this interview and the poppycock held within, because for those who haven't heard, this is the big news coming out of this interview, that apparently the royal family don't have much to do in their evenings apart from going through the entire series of Suits with a big black marker and crossing out words and phrases that they feel isn't befitting of a duchess or a royal duchess. Poppycock, we are told, is one of those words. Really? Yeah, I've got a few things to say about this, my dear. So let's look at what Aaron Korsh tells us. He tells us how he was so excited to go to the wedding. They were all rather, looking forward to the special occasion. Wonderful, wonderful. But then in regards to the royal family editing his so treasured scripts, he says, I will say, and I think Harry put this in the book because I heard people talking about it, the royal family weighed in on some stuff. Not many things, by the way, but a few things that we wanted to do and couldn't do, and it was a little irritating. No, never in a million years. This is so absurd. To think that Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth spent her idle evenings going through the scripts of your shitty show? Aaron Korsh, Her late Majesty, she was only Queen of the United Kingdom and 15 other realms, or however many it was, my dear. Didn't have much to do, so yeah, I will treat myself to my granddaughter-in-law's soap opera scripts of an evening. Are you serious? And as for Prince Charles as he was, our king, he wouldn't wipe his arse with the pages of your script, Aaron Korsh. He wouldn't wipe the royal buttocks with a single page from your naff old script. To seriously suggest that this man who has access to the original folios of Shakespeare and all the poets of the land and beyond would cosy down with Queen Cammy or the Duchess of Cornwall as she was and do anything other than rip up the pages of that script and chuck it in a fire or furnace, I ask you. It wouldn't even have crossed their mind to look at the thing, my dear, because when you speak about the royal family, you're not speaking about the institution, you're not speaking about the firm, the courtiers. In this segment, the royal family is put in brackets, so I thought perhaps this guy didn't actually say the royal family, but later on in the interview, he is quoted as using that term, that expression, the royal family. Well, the family is a kernel of 6 main senior royals. There are 11 working royals in total, but what he's really saying is that it would either have been the late Queen, the late Prince Philip, Charles, Camilla, perhaps even William and Catherine, but mainly those main 4 is who he's talking about, as if any of them would waste a moment's breath even thinking about your trashy soap opera, my darling. Never. And, by the way, it is the general understanding of everybody in the know that when the late Queen met Meghan, a 20-minute meeting was had or thereabouts, and the Queen made it very clear to Meghan that she could continue exactly in the style that she wanted to continue in. If she wanted to be an actress, she could be an actress. There would be no interference. It is not a dictatorship. She could have done exactly as she chose, and she didn't need the Queen's blessing or permission, but we are told by both Andrew Morton and Giles Brandreth, who is a close friend, or as close as you can get to friendship with our existing King and Queen. He was with Camilla just What day is it? Thursday? Wednesday? On Tuesday, anyway. He was with Camilla on Tuesday. You see him with her all the time. So he's very much in the know. And he told us in his book, Elizabeth, An Intimate Portrait, that Meghan utilised that time in the meeting to make it evident that she wanted to focus entirely on her royal duties. Ready for royal duty, says the book. And she promised she would not let the Queen down on the Commonwealth. Oh, as Mary Poppins says, a pie crust promise, easily made, easily broken, as well as breaking the heart of our late Queen and the late Philip. Although Giles Brandreth actually suggests, in fairness, that Philip took all of their tawdry cabareting a lot harder than the late Queen, because Queen Elizabeth was utterly forgiving, he tells us, extremely tolerant, full of love for Harry, and even though she was horrified by what was going on, she was able to take a lot of it in her stride, as in, seen it all before, had all kinds of stresses and strains in my life. I'm not even going to look at it. He tells us that she only saw the good in people. She was a really good, decent woman that was very much inspired by her Christian faith. That is inescapable. He tells us she was very forgiving and didn't give any thought to all of the tawdriness of in the wake of the Oprah scandal, for example. Philip, however, found the whole thing a lot more regrettable and seemed to cause him rather a lot of concern and umbrage. But regardless, Meghan was given free rein under the late Elizabeth's wonderful reign to do exactly as she pleases. She was not forced or cajoled into doing anything she didn't want to do. Aaron Corsh continues. I remember one was a particular line of dialogue, and look, I'll just say what the line was. My wife's family, when they have a topic to discuss that might be sensitive, they use the word poppycock. Let's say you wanted to do something that you knew your husband didn't want to do, but you wanted to at least discuss it, and in just discussing it, you wouldn't hold him to anything he said. You'd be like, it's poppycock. Well, that is a very long and drawn out description of a definition of the word poppycock, and from where I stand, it's completely wrong, by the way. The word that he seems to be reaching for in the example that he gives is actually a word such as hypothesis. He is describing a hypothetical situation, a hypothesis, not poppycock, because poppycock means nonsense. It means nonsense on stilts, my dear. You know, poppycock. Lies. Bullshit. Which is the word he ends up exchanging it for. This boy doesn't really seem to know what he's going on about, my dear. He's speaking poppycock when he is trying to define the word poppycock. And poppycock is a harmless word, and for those who are wondering about its etymological beginnings, it is believed to be a Dutch word or of Dutch origin from the mid-19th century. Poppycock, pap meaning soft and cack meaning dung. And there are some other possible explanations involving excretions from dolls, but I'm not going to go down that road. But I'll continue with what he tells us. So, in the episode, Mike and Rachel were going to have a thing. And as a nod to my in-laws, we were going to have her say, my family would say poppycock. And the royal family did not want Meghan saying the word. They didn't want to put the word poppycock in her mouth. Well, I am just going to say here and now categorically, Aaron Corsh, that simply is not true. It is not true. And I don't know if Aaron Corsh is claiming this, or if Meghan's agent used those words, or Meghan and Harry themselves described the situation and related this event. But the royal family, meaning Elizabeth, Philip, Charles and Camilla, had nothing to do with any suggestion of the sort. He says, I presume this was because they didn't want people cutting things together of her saying cock, so we had to change it to bullshit instead of poppycock. Well, right there, you are seriously telling me that if they were poring over a script for a future Duchess and thought that Poppycock was just too vulgar and it was too much of a risk for such an obscenity to spout forth from her oh so royal lips, you're telling me that they thought bullshit was an acceptable alternative? Well, obviously not. So the fact that you replaced Poppycock with bullshit, doesn't that tell you something about Aaron Korsh? Doesn't that tell you that perhaps he did it to spite the royals or the royal courtiers? He certainly wouldn't have replaced the word Poppycock with bullshit if he cared about protecting her or cared about the system she was going into, if what he tells us is true about the system and the royal family that scribbled out that oh so obscene line. And by the way, the royal family, the people in the royal family, wouldn't give a shit if she came out with a word such as poppycock. It's a great word. And I didn't like it because I'd told my in-laws that the word poppycock was going to be in the show. There was maybe one or two more things, but I can't remember. So this has gone from the start of the interview, where you said that the royal family were weighing in with a few things, to this Poppycock gate issue and maybe one or two more things. Do you see how the whole affair, whether true or false, is dramatised? Well, we can all play that game, lovey. So welcome to the show. How did the royal family get the scripts? The Hollywood Reporter inquires to Aaron Korsh. I don't know how they got them. I was aware that they were reading them because I got the feedback, but I don't remember the process by which they got them. Quiz of the year, isn't it? And who called you to tell you that Meghan can't utter the word? Or did Meghan make that call herself? They're very curious to know. Curious minds want to know, Aaron Korsh. No, Meghan did not call me. I can't remember. It might have been the directing producer at the time or her agent. Whoever it was, they didn't like having to tell me any more than I liked having to hear it. What a drama. But listen, when they explained it to me, that it was all about that splicing potential of splicing the clips up together, I had some sympathy because I wouldn't want somebody doing that to her either. Oh, how thoughtful. And how thoughtful of Aaron Korsh to come forward with this story now, because no one knew about this story, no one knew about this issue. Now, forevermore, thanks to Meghan Markle's choice wedding guest, the whole world will associate the word Poppycock with Meghan Markle. Do you understand? Forevermore, that word will be associated with her because of her friend, not because of the palace, not because of agents or directors or perhaps others behind the scenes getting up to mischief, but because of Aaron Korsh and Aaron Korsh alone. Who really does the damage to the Sussexes? This is the question, not the palace. If Kensington, and this is a big if Kensington Palace courtiers or Buckingham Palace courtiers, those on the peripheral rather than the actual family themselves, if they were in any sort of advisory role or had been issued scripts to go through for checking, it would have come at the request of the Sussexes. It would have been at their behest. Moreover, Meghan's. And if the royal family did intervene, there is only one member of that family who wouldn't have wanted anybody else's poppycock put in her mouth. Harry! That apeth, that daft apeth. Harry Sussex. If anybody is the likely culprit of that royal family, it's him. It's him, my dear. Those two are the ones that are obsessed with words. They are the ones that are obsessed with social media and what can be done on social media. It's that brother that is forever associated the word Willie with William now. Yes, I know I have my fun and call him Big Willie as well, but I am not his brother. I am here bringing some light-hearted entertainment to you. So that's a little bit different than one's own brother and a royal, a senior royal as he was, reducing our future king to Harold and Willie. Harold and Willie. That was the brother that did that. And one of the signs that points me in the direction of the Sussexes being behind this and behind any objection is the fact that they objected to their noble title of Dumbarton, the Earl and Countess of Dumbarton, because they panicked that they and their children would be known as the Dumbos or the Dumbartons. And we've spoken about this before. It seems as if I'm pulling your leg as if it's comedy. This is a real thing that happened. They objected. They weren't pleased about this, and they wanted Archie to be known as a prince as soon as possible before he was rightfully due to be known as it, because they didn't want him to come into public consciousness as a Dumbarton. As a Dumbarton. So think about it. They are the ones that pour over these potential slights, as if any other members of the royal family would be worrying about what was spliced up and cut and ticked and tocked all over the place, I ask you. So I would like to know exactly who passed the blame to the royal family, as Aaron Korsh tells us. Where did that come from? This agent? Meghan's associates or Meghan herself? Because it sounds like whoever it was had great fun passing on, oh, the royal family have been on the phone, they've been going through the scripts, they say no, she's not allowed to say poppycock. I mean, how stupid can the palace be? Someone would have been taking great delight, by the sounds of it, in making it seem as if the royal family were being oh so censorious. They just couldn't bear her putting such a shocking word in her mouth. Enjoying the drama. In Spare, Prince Harry claimed it was the palace communications team who advised the show's writers to change Meghan's lines. Well, as we all know, his recollections via J.R. Mooringer vary tremendously with those at the palace. But even if we do take the very risky chance of taking Harry at his word, then it wasn't the royal family, was it, Aaron Korsh? It was the palace comms team. So where has this misinformation seeped in? Because out of the whole lot of them, I find it far easier to imagine Prince Harry himself going through all her scripts, checking that there isn't going to be anything there that he isn't going to be offended by himself, that he doesn't want his wife saying in front of anybody else or doing. It just takes a little dose of common sense to reach the conclusion that I've reached with regards to who is being implicated in this episode, and I could be way off the mark here, but my common sense tells me that the person being implicated by Harry actually is Jason Knauf, because, as he said in his tome, it was the palace communications team that gave sway to what Meghan should say, how she should act in suits. Well, it was Jason Knauf that headed up that team at that time. And as we all know, Harry's got a bee in his bonnet about Jason Knauf, as has Meghan. So, in my opinion, that is the likely culprit of this episode. But the caveat being that we have been privy to communications and text and emails between the Duchess and Jason Knauf, and we know that they had a very chummy back and forth relationship, where she would send him things, say, is this okay? Is that not okay? Let's check this. Can we rearrange this letter to Daddy? And yes, that'll really pull on the heartstrings, and that'll really tug there. And she wanted backup from her new communications executive. And she wanted his input and advice. She was going to him in her histrionic way, firefighting and being an executive and showing everybody what's key, and pretending that she wanted to fit oh so very well into the new mould and be the perfect Duchess. And I'll put all things aside, and I promise to you, Queenie, that the Commonwealth will be preciously guarded and protected by me, and, you know, really self-sacrificing herself. She's a right old Joan of Arc, my dear, a right martyr. What is that beeping in the background? Can you hear it? It's really putting me off. Shut up! Well, for one thing, Jason Knauf certainly is not a member of the royal family. So let's get that cleared up for a start. He was an employee of the royal household, along with thousands of others. And in that capacity, he might have been trying to advise or help or respond to her requests for help and advice. And they're the ones that tell us they received no help or advice along the way. Well, in this circumstance, if it was proffered by the likes of Jason Knauf at their behest, do you see the tangled webs they weave? Then you'd think they might be grateful for it, instead of ending up with cast and crew making all kinds of disparagements about it and suggesting that the sort of priggish, prudish, oversensitive royal family and all their representatives were digging their heels in and interfering with the production of this fabulous soap opera. Well, it's a great pity that there isn't a memoir forthcoming written by Jason Knauf called Recollections May Vary that might provide us with the back and forths between he and the Duchess, because I think it would be very illuminating if this episode and this whole Poppycock Gate affair was uncovered, so that we could see what really went on and from whence the drama actually emanated. But I am quite sorry, even if there is no smoke without fire, and even if there is a grain of truth about this story, then whatever was done would have been done at their behest to protect Meghan and nothing more. But they would only have doled out such advice if they had been asked to provide it by the Sussexes. As I mentioned, the Queen was seen with Giles Brandreth on Tuesday. She returned to royal duties already. Seems to have flown by much of that time at Balmoral. But she returned to royal duties, and she was at Fielding Primary School in Ealing as part of the Poetry Together initiative, bringing together pupils, young pupils, and care home residents. Isn't it nice to see them bridging the generation gap there? And together they took tea and cake and watched recitals, and the Queen opened a new library. They cut cake with Alice in Wonderland and the Mad Hatter. Isn't that wonderful? I wonder if he was the one responsible for Meghan's poop hat. That would be quite a turn-up, wouldn't it? Or Beatrice and Eugenie's wedding Teletubby affairs. Actually, you know those Teletubby outfits of Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie that they took a lot of stick for? And there was rather a lot of mockery about them, including from me possibly from time to time. I've actually grown to really admire and love the boldness of those outfits. And actually some of that is due to comments that people in the comments have left here and there as well, saying that they admire it. And I've got to agree with you. You know, I have come round to that way of thinking. I'm not saying they always get it right, my dear, but it is rather fabulous in many ways that they do have a bold sense of daring. And perhaps in the past I've been a little bit too snide about some of their choices. I mean, look at me, I'm sitting here like Carmen Miranda on acid, aren't I, dear? So I know that I'm not especially one to talk, but then I'm not a royal representative. But I've come around to actually rather want to see some of the oddities they come out with, or some of the more daring, colourful choices. It's better than bland, isn't it, in many ways? It's better than bland, so good on them. Before I depart today, I just wanted to have a little chat on the woke state of the world. One of the topics du jour, isn't it, or for the past several years? Because a little sign of encouragement here in the kingdom. Sir Mark Rowley is Britain's most senior policeman and is a commissioner for the Metropolitan Police. And he says that officers under his charge will not be allowed to express support for woke causes anymore. This is really welcome good news. We'll see if it transpires to be true and upheld. No support expressed while they are on duty because it's essential that they are impartial. So why has this been permitted and encouraged over the last few years? You know, this is welcome news to hear. But where were you, commissioners, when it was Cressida Dick? Previous commissioners, where have you all been? Well, they finally seem to be seeing some kind of light. No longer will they tolerate their officers taking the knee, for example, flying rainbow flags, adorning uniforms with badges that support environmental causes, this kind of thing. But this is long overdue. I hope, because this is for the Metropolitan Police, I hope this will be rolled out nationally. He said, wearing a poppy in the autumn is perfectly proper, but there is not a lot that we should align ourselves to, because the danger is that once you say we're going to align ourselves to a cause because 90% of the population support it, what about the 10%? Well, go figure. Go figure. This is what we've all understood and known. No one is saying, especially, that there's anything wrong or right about these causes that we see. And any citizen in the country should be free to do exactly as they please. But we're talking about the police. They are employed to uphold the law, not express political support. It's similar to all the nonsense on stilts with regarding banks and all the Coots drama last month and NatWest and all these branches where they are waving political flags at everybody. It's not cricket. These are neutral forums, or should be. What any reasonable thinking person wants from the police is diligence, is trustworthiness, is professionalism, and not individualism. They are fully entitled to be individuals in their private life, but if they want to become activists, joining the police force is not the forum for it. And in most cases, it doesn't come down to the individual police. They are not really the ones that I'm disparaging here, because I have a great admiration for the police, generally speaking. I understand there are many issues with the police force and that there are shady characters within it. But in the main, most people working for the police that choose a career with the police have my great admiration and gratitude for the fabulous work they do. But it is the management, and it comes all the way from the top. And this is why this Sir Mark Rowley, I don't know anything else about this chap, but seems to be at least putting a stop to some of this nonsense, which should have happened a long time ago on somebody else's watch. And I'm going to turn to my Canadian fruits to let me know what's going on in Canada at the moment, because we have the curious case of Kayla Lemieux. Kayla Lemieux, the trans teacher with Z-cup prosthetic breasts, who was hired recently by Nora Francis Henderson Secondary School in Ontario. They've hired this thing with the enormous pendulums after her previous school put her on unpaid leave, or him, because this person has been captured on photograph presenting entirely as male. And I don't see him ever presenting as female in any way. I see him presenting in drag, a weird form of drag, with a prosthetic Z-cup endowments. And the presence of Kayla Lemieux, or Kayla Lemieux, at this new school role has forced principals to boost security, so more money wasted on that. Well, no one really knows what is going on with this Kayla Lemieux character, but many people say that Kayla is a disgruntled right-winger, actually, that has been hoodwinking everybody and pulling the wool over people's eyes to make an example of the wokery in the school system, so all might not be as it appears. That is one explanation, that Kayla is actually poking fun at the strange system and pushing how far weirdos can get away with. Kayla has insisted in the past that her endowments are as the result of a medical condition, but as I say, that has been poo-pooed by other photographs that show him without any of these prosthetics. Others have suggested that it is just a man with a kink who gets off in some way on wearing this kind of garb. Well, regardless, for whatever reason it is, I'm sorry, but this man should not be among pupils to make a point, even if it is a dig at wokery. I'm afraid it's obscene, and it shouldn't require any further intellectualizing over the matter. It's obscene and it is grotesque. How has Canada come to a point where it is acceptable for this character, for whatever reason, to appear and be hired and rehired and re-employed by establishments teaching their children in the classroom for whatever reason. And my Canadian fruits, you know that I adore Canada. I've been to Canada, Ontario actually, as it happens. Only Ontario, I think, to my memory. And I love the place, I love the people, I absolutely adore what I know of Canada. It's one of the few countries that I would consider moving to. And who knows, it might come to the point where I might have to flee this kingdom off to Canada. But we're told in the press it's become the wokest nation in the world. So I'd like to hear, some of you have told me this, but I am not an expert on your politics or your people, so I am not claiming to be or claiming to know what is going on there. But some people lay it squarely on the shoulders of Justin Trudeau. I have friends that adore Justin Trudeau, or did a few years ago. Whether or not they still do now, I'm not sure whether they will feel the same way. But at one point in time, they were very proud of Justin Trudeau. But I came across a short documentary presented by Stephen Edginton. He was introducing a documentary called Canada's Woke Nightmare, A Warning to the West. And it wasn't the most illuminating, fabulous documentary in the world, but it was interesting and covered a few of these points of the promotion of gender ideology. This was in Vancouver in particular, by the way. Gender ideology, the mass legalization of drugs, the clampdowns on freedom of speech, and extreme new suicide laws. He was covering all these kind of things. And by the way, this is not just a criticism of left-wing politics whatsoever, because in this kingdom we are in the 13th year of a Tory government. We are in the 13th year of a Tory government, and over those 13 years it's been a landslide into wokery. So this is certainly not just criticism of one side of the lollipop, my dear. It's happening all over the place from all sides. Jordan Peterson appears in this documentary, and he's quoted as saying, "The predatory psychopaths out there have figured out how to clothe themselves in the guise of compassion." And on that I must agree with Jordan Peterson, because you see them everywhere, don't you, wafting about, be kind, do kind, lecturing us all on how to be kind, humankind. You dare say mankind, oh dear, or womankind, humankind. Well, we know what kind you are, my dear, because without fail they are always looking like the innocent flower, but being the serpent under it. The serpent, we know about all those slippery snakes, don't we, my dear? And we're on the lookout for them, and we're going to hiss right on back. Thank you for joining me today, my dears. I appreciate your company. Do leave me a juicy comment, and my tip jar is in the description box if you'd like to treat me to a cup of tea and a slice of cake. See you next time, my dears. Ta-ra and toodle pip.